Mark Noble is currently responsible and trying to get Divin Mubama to sign a new deal with the football club. Not only Divin, he's also trying to get Callum Marshall to sign a new contract. He's just got Patrick Keller to sign one as well. But Mubama feels different because he has rejected previous offers from the club. His contract's coming to an end as well. So there's an urgency there from West Ham to get Mubama to commit his future to West Ham. And I hope he succeeds. Not just because I want to see Mubama at West Ham for longer, to see if he can make it at the football club, but also because I'd like to see Mubama repay the faith from West Ham, from Mark Noble, and maybe to a lesser extent from David Moyes. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, you must be joking. Just hear me out, let me explain, and hopefully I can make my point. You may not agree with me, but hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from. If we rewind to the start of the season, it emerged that Mubama had rejected a contract or contracts from West Ham United. David Moyes has confirmed this as well, that it had been in negotiations for 12 months and he'd yet to commit his future to the club. And instantly the reasons came out, and there's two big reasons given, completely different narratives. It depends what you read and who you believe, I guess. Now, in the interests of fairness, I try and read everything when it comes to this sort of thing. Well, not just sort of anything West Ham. I try and read it all. I certainly don't believe it all. I believe very little. But Mubama, there was two sides of the coin. There was a narrative that it was due to game time. He wasn't signing because he wanted minutes in the first team. And because he wasn't getting them, he wasn't going to commit his future to the club. The other side of it was down to money, that Mubama was asking for too much money for someone who was, at the time, an under-21s player. And that the club were reluctant to give him what he was asking for. So, like I said, it depends what you believe and who you believe. I guess both could be true, but that was the two narratives that were being put out there at the start of the season, 5 months ago now. Well, I think the landscape has changed for both those reasons. And because of that, I hope Mubama signs a new contract. I hope the contract offer from West Ham is adequate, and I hope Mubama's expectations are reasonable. And I think that if the money side of it is reasonable, I think the game time he's getting is acceptable for someone who just turned 19 at the end of 2023. Now, you may disagree, and that is fine, but I think what he's getting recently is enough. I don't accept all season he's had enough game time. I think there was opportunities where Moyes should have played him earlier on. But in the last month or so, and we're going to take a look at the minutes he's picking up, but in the last month or so, I think he's starting to get game time from the manager. I think he's moved ahead of Danny Ings in the pecking order. As we talk today, he has been the second choice striker while Michail Antonio's been out. Bowen's been the number one choice, followed by Mubama, possibly Paqueta. But Mubama's ahead of Danny Ings, a guy that's paid over 100 grand a week. A guy that has scored goals in the Premier League every single season for Liverpool, for Southampton, for Aston Villa. He's been a prolific goal scorer in the Premier League. Mubama's moved ahead of him in the pecking order. I'm unsure if that will remain the case when we play Bristol City on Tuesday, because how Ings played when he came off the bench and because of Moyes' comments. I think Ings might get the start against Bristol City. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, in the last month, I think he's been getting enough game time, and I would like to see him repay that. Because there's always a bit of a chicken and egg thing when these things go on. If we assume it was down to game time and Mubama saying, well, I'm not signing because I'm not getting game time, and Moyes is at the other side going, well, I'm not playing you because you will not commit your future to West Ham. Someone had to do something, otherwise we're in this Mexican standoff. The can gets kicked down the road, and in the end we know what happens. We've run out of time. Mubama leaves. We've seen it with Jeremy Ngakia. He wouldn't sign a new contract. We've seen it with the likes of Sonny Perkins. He wouldn't sign a new deal. Moyes wouldn't play him. Harrison Ashby as well. Now, obviously, you're going to look at those and think, well, look at Perkins. He's just had a failed loan move. Ashby hasn't had a minute for Newcastle. What's Ngakia? I don't even know what Ngakia is doing. But I'm trying to ignore those cases. We're not talking about why Mubama should get a chance. We're talking about why Mubama should sign a contract. And Moyes sometimes, not always, sometimes doesn't play those players because of the contract situation. Well, he's playing Mubama despite the contract situation. I would like to see Mubama repay that a little bit by signing and committing his future to West Ham. Now, before we go any further, please do subscribe. You're new to Hamish Chat. We're nearly on the old 36,000. The old as if it's like a milestone, but we're nearly on 36,000 subscribers. It'd be nice to hit that this week. Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it as well. A couple of days ago I said send in your topics, email me your topics, because we've got the winter break, and to be fair I thought we'd have a 2-week break, not a 10-day one, but because of the winter break I thought it's a chance to do some videos we perhaps wouldn't always do because it's usually based around the games. So Phil got in touch and said, this is my thoughts on Mubama. So Phil said, number one, he's expecting too much time on the ball. Just like Paqueta did when he first joined us. Not that I'm comparing them in ability, obviously. He has to assume he will be challenged as soon as he receives the ball, something that under-21s hasn't prepared him for. Number two, that leads into ball control. He needs to look at how effective Bowen is at receiving and controlling the ball. The two things are linked. Bowen transitions immediately into an offensive manoeuvre as soon as he receives the ball, and that makes defenders wary of him. Divine is still thinking about what to do next when he receives it. He goes on to say, so whilst I'm unconvinced as yet Divine will make it in Premier League, I've not seen enough yet to be certain he won't. But he's got to learn and be coached quickly or he will miss his chance. Moyes should stick with him for now. But we should also be involving Marshall in match day squads because I'm convinced only one of them is going to have a future in the first team with us. Cheers, Phil. Thank you, Phil, for getting in touch. And I was always going to do a video on Mubama. You just sped it up a little bit. I agree with everything Phil said there. The last sentence isn't something that occurred to me in regards to only one of Marshall and Mubama will make it with us. I found myself agreeing with it. And it's not because they don't have the ability, but because the opportunity to play in the first team. It's very difficult to put two youngsters into the first team. It's even more difficult to put two youngsters who play in a similar position. You could make a case for playing Mubama through the middle, Marshall out left, as they did for the under-18s and 21s. But two youngsters making it when their competition is Antonio, Ings, Benrahma, Fornals, Cornet, and then of course Paqueta, Bowen, Kudus. It's hard to see them both succeeding. Hopefully they do. But I actually agree with Phil there that perhaps only one of them will succeed with us and the other one will probably have to leave West Ham in order to forge a career in football. And they will both have really good careers in football. I've got no doubt about that. In regards to what we've seen from Mubama so far, I've not been impressed, but I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I've got a lot of patience with Mubama. I'm almost prepared to write this season off to some extent and say this is his training, this is his experience, if you like, and hopefully between now and then the season we see him improve drastically, not quickly but drastically. The difference of Mubama before Christmas and at the end of the season will hopefully be significant, that he's getting used to the pace of Premier League, because that's something he's going to have to do. He's going to have to get used to everything. There was maybe a reminder of how far Mubama's got to go when the under-21s played Wickham last night. Obviously he didn't participate in that game, but the difference between our team and their team, I think we were better on the ball actually. I think West Ham were better than Wickham moving the ball about. I think our patterns of play were better, but physically there was absolutely no competition whatsoever. The aggression from them was almost there as well. They respected our team and they turned up and made it difficult for us, and it looked like men versus boys because it was. And I think you just watch that game thinking this is the difference Mubama's got. He was doing this last season. He was playing in that West Ham team. This season he's up against that Wickham team, if that makes sense. So the difference is significant. I think we're seeing Mubama struggle a little bit like with that at this moment. But that was expected. Now we're going to take a look at the minutes now, and this is a big part of the reason why I would like to see Mubama sign a new contract. Like I said, I don't expect you to agree with it. This is just my opinion. This is Mubama's Premier League season so far. So as you can see, match day one he was on the bench, then he was out the squad for a few games as we had too many players. That was when the likes of Mubama, Coventry, Johnson, Cornet couldn't get into the team because we had no injuries back then. Then he's back on the bench, he was not in the squad, and then he came on against Burnley, and that's changed everything. That game against Burnley I think was significant. He came on, he didn't score, but his movement was crucial to us getting that own goal. Got 28 minutes against them. Back on the bench against Palace. Now, that was the game where I was disappointed he didn't come on. Against Tottenham, but again, that's fine. We won that game. I understand why Moyes didn't bring him on. Came on against Fulham when the game was over. Got a handful of minutes, pointless minutes at the end against Wolves. On the bench against Man U and Arsenal. But again, we won those games. It's a hard environment to bring an under-21s player, because that's what he is at the minute. He's an under-21s player playing in the senior squad. It's hard to bring them on in this game. Then he got 17 minutes against Brighton. Moving on to the Cups, he came on, he got 76 minutes against Bristol City, obviously, which I was pleased to see. I was surprised he turned to Mubama ahead of Ings, and maybe a significant substitution there to sort of give us an idea of where Mubama is in terms of Moyes' thinking. The EFL Cup was a disappointing one, in the sense that he only got 24 minutes against Lincoln. He should have started that game, he didn't. Moving on to European football, The first 4 games are write-offs. Then he got 67 minutes against Bakatopola. Didn't perform too well in that game. He did look a little bit lost in it. On the bench against Freiburg, came on for 80 minutes, which I think is a decent amount of time considering how crucial that game was. Came on with Danny Ings, of course. But a big part of the reason I think Mubama might be struggling, this is just my opinion again, is his lack of football for the under-21s. So last season he was training with the senior squad, but he was also playing for the under-18s and their more important games, and also playing for the under-21s. He was getting a lot of youth team football last season, Mubama, because we had Antonio, and we had for Skamaka at one point, we had Danny Ings for the second half of the season. So there was a lot of people in the way for Mubama, and obviously he started that season as a 17-year-old, so he's playing a lot of youth team football. This season, there isn't any. He's barely played for the under-21s. Let's bring that up on the screen now. So you can see there in the Premier League 2, which is the one underneath, it's the bottom one, down in the bottom corner. He's got 90 minutes against Sunderland at the very start of the season, because obviously, as we've just seen there, he was on the bench for the senior squad, but he hadn't had a minute of action. And then he got 75 minutes against Southampton, which was back at the end of September. Since then, he's not featured in a squad. He's only been in the squad for the under-21s in league football twice, started both games. So the last time he kicked the ball for the under-21s in the league games was back in September. If you have a look at the EFL trophy, that's the one at the top, the bigger one. You can see he got 90 minutes against Cheltenham, 90 minutes against Colchester, who scored in both games. Now, he may have played against Wycombe last night had we not sustained injuries to the extended ones to Antonio, but also more significantly David Bowen. So he can't play in this game anymore. Moyes couldn't afford to let him go play against Wycombe for understandable reasons. But there you go, 4 games for the under-21 so far this season. So last season, when we had Mubama, at least he had a bit of momentum and confidence. He was scoring goals. This season, he scored 2 for the under-21s, but he's not picking up the game time. There's no momentum for him. It's probably hard for his confidence now, where he's training with the senior squad on the bench, not really getting a kick, not really getting much matches. So there's a case that he should go out on loan, but I think the minutes he's starting to pick up now, and if you take a look at the Premier League one, like I said, 17 against Brighton, 26 against Fulham, 28 against Burnley, it's not loads, but it's a significant step in the right direction for him. Is it enough for him to commit his future to West Ham? I don't know. I hope so. Because, like I said, it feels like he's ahead of Danny Ings. That might flip round. But with the players injured, he should be looking at this thinking, hello, I'm now going to get a lot of game time. And he should get a lot of game time, and I hope he does. He's basically got 3-4 games where there's a lot of pressure on him, because we need someone to score goals, and he's ultimately going to be the striker. But my expectations for him are quite minimal at the minute. And this is why I can't compare him versus Ings in terms of performances, because the expectations are vastly different. We signed Ings, he's over on 100 grand a week. He's an experienced Premier League player, whereas Mubama's just working things out. He's doing his apprenticeship. He doesn't look ready. Mubama does not look ready for Premier League football, but I never expected him to be. It's very, very, very rare that you can go get someone from your youth team, put them in the Premier League, and they're ready just like that. That's what Declan Rice wasn't ready. Do you remember Arsenal away? The cross come in, he ducked. It went in the back of the net. You can see Joe Hart going, what have we just done that for? Liverpool away, he got subbed off at half time. Newcastle away, he got subbed off at half time. I'm pretty sure he got subbed off at half time in that game as well. Rice really struggled initially because they're not expected to be ready for the Premier League. They are going to need bedding in. And this is what we're doing with Mubama. We're giving him minutes to get ready, to get used to, as Phil said, less time on the ball, perhaps more of a physical nature from the centre-backs. As an experienced centre-back, you'd expect them to be quite dominant against a youngster. Thinking, hello, we're going to bully this guy today. He doesn't know what's about. We're going to rough him up. He's going to get that treatment, but we just have to stick with him, allow him to struggle, because eventually, hopefully, all being well, he will stop struggling. He will become used to the Premier League. When we spoke to Mark Phillips a few months ago, and we asked him about some of the youngsters, when speaking about Divine, the first thing he mentioned in terms of what is good about Divin Mubama was his movement. It wasn't his physicality, it was his movement. How good he is at reading the play and shifting and getting into the correct positions. And we've seen that for the goal against Burnley. His movement was fantastic for that goal. He draws the defender in, comes out the defender, goes in. But it's Mubama's movement that causes that. We've not really had an opportunity to see that, because some of those games he comes on, like Freiburg, we're 2-0 up and we're we're parking the bus, aren't we? We're now into our low block mode. It's difficult for a striker. We've seen Antonio struggle, Ings struggle, Jared Bourne struggle as strikers in this West Ham team. It'd be ridiculously unfair, I think, to expect Mubama to come in and succeed just like that. I've got a lot of patience for him. I haven't been impressed so far. I think his first touch is lacking. Some games the ball's got zipped into him. Bowen makes it stick. Mubama, it's bouncing off him. His second touch is a tackle. It's not good, but he will learn. He will get used to that. The way the senior squad play is completely different to the way youth teams play. Should it be that way? No, right? It shouldn't be that way. You would like the entire club to play the same way. So when you're a centre-back, for example, in the under-21s and you get called up to senior squad, you're playing the same game. In terms of how you play, the tactics, everything's the same. We don't even play the same formation. The under-21s play a back three. We don't even play the same formation, never mind the same style. So what Mubama was playing for the under-21s and under-18s is completely different to how we play in the senior team. Like I said, I think it's a bit of a baffling thing that we do not play that way. But that's the circumstances we're in at the minute. I'm just checking my notes now. There was something else I wanted to say. Money. Even if Mubama, or the club were reluctant to give Mubama what he was asking for, the rumours were 20, 30 grand. But let's just take 20 grand. Is it a lot for someone, an under-21s player? It is. But he's not an under-21s player anymore. He's a senior player. He's getting bits. Not many minutes, but he's probably had more minutes than Cornet. I should have probably went and looked. He's probably had more minutes than Cornet this season. He's probably had more appearances than Aaron Caswell. Now, I'm not saying pay him anything, but 30 grand is nothing for someone that is essentially a senior squad player. 20 grand is £1 million a year. It's not much. Even if he didn't cut it at West Ham and we sold him, we'd probably be able to recoup our money for him. We'd probably get it back. Even if we gave him that 20, 30 grand and loaned him out, there's a good chance Championship Club will be able to pay half his wages or something. I just think the costly gamble, in terms of the financial gamble on Mubama, is nothing because of what you might get. What is the best case scenario? We have someone like Declan Rice on our hands. Is that likely? No, it's not. What's a realistic best case ambition? Well, we have someone that's able to play Premier League football. We have Mubama, who can be eventually a first choice striker for West Ham. Possibly worst case, he's a bit like Ben Johnson, doing what he does now. He comes off the bench. He's a squad player. Well, that's still worth 20, 30 grand a week, in my opinion. At the start of the season, there was no evidence to give Mubama that money, and there was no evidence for Mubama to sign a contract. I think that's changed today, only in the last month, but I think it's changed. He's now getting game time. He's moved ahead of Danny Ings in the pecking order. I think that makes those wage demands feel realistic, feel reasonable. But also, I think that game time is adequate for someone who's learning his trade in the Premier League. I think it's time for Divin Mubama to repay his trust in West Ham, Mark Noble, and to a lesser extent, because like I said, at the start of the season, I think he should have had more minutes. I think there's been more opportunities to play Divin Mubama than we've given him. But he's getting them now. So to a lesser extent, repay the faith from David Moyes. Because it was a case of chicken and egg earlier in the season. You can decide which one Moyes is, if he's the chicken or the egg. But Moyes has given him some game time now. Of course, there's the danger there. Mubama signs it. Moyes goes, hey, thank you very much. Now you're going to get less game time. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that actually he might get even more game time now. If he commits his future to West Ham, Moyes might say, actually, you're definitely staying ahead of Danny Ings in the pecking order. I'm going to keep this because eventually you might become that Premier League player. And I'm going to finish it up. While Ings is probably more suited to Premier League than Divin Mubama, in a year's time, which one's most likely to be suited to West Ham? It will be Mubama. Because he can be moulded, he can be coached. Ings can't. So stick with Mubama, keep giving him minutes, keep putting up with him not being ready, in the hope that one day he is. Because while he might do, I've got no faith that Danny Ings will eventually become ready for the way that we play under David Moyes. Mubama might just do that. And I think that is worth the financial gamble. And I hope he gets that contract. I hope he signs that contract. Anyway, Phil, thank you very much for your email. Thank you to you lot for sticking around. Hopefully it makes sense. Looking forward to seeing what you say. So get involved in the comments. Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe to YouTube Hammers Chat. Hopefully it will hit 36,000 soon. And I'll catch up with you in a bit.